And as I was watching during my preparation time, as I often do, my good friend Neil Cavuto on the Fox News channel at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, during the course of the program, for some reason, he had John McCain on. Not exactly a hard get. I was at the airport yesterday, and I could swear I saw him on the airport radar. But there it was. And John McCain has this refrain in which he says we need 67 votes in the Senate to repeal Obamacare. Got to thinking to myself, well, that doesn't make sense. So we need 51 to pass it and 67 to repeal it? This is one of the reasons I support term limits. So McCain's out there either making an ass of himself by dissembling or making an ass out of himself by his incompetence, because you don't need 67 votes to repeal Obamacare, or good chunks of it. And I know this because Paul Ryan, who I just mentioned, was on my program over a year ago, July 11th, 2012 to be specific, and he explained how you repeal Obamacare or defund big chunks of it. And we all agree that Paul Ryan knows about this, right? We all agree that as the budget chairman, he would know how to do this, don't we? He said you need 51 votes. Cut 16. Paul Ryan on the Mark Levin Show, July 11, 2012. Go.
I believed before this ruling that this
Stop.
could have...
Before the Supreme Court ruling. Let's start over. I should have done a better job laying the table on this, setting the table. We had the Supreme Court ruling the month before, unconstitutional decision, rewriting the Constitution and the statute, and that's what he means when he's referring to this ruling. Cut 16, go.
I believed before this ruling that this could have been dealt with in reconciliation, so I don't think the court got us anything farther than what we already had, because according to the rules of the 1974 Budget Act, which governs our budget process, as budget chair, I run with this process, I manage this process, anything that has fiscal impacts, taxing and spending, that can go into a budget which cannot be filibustered and therefore only takes 51 votes to pass the Senate.
Wow. So I guess McCain's wrong. We don't need 67 votes, do we, Senator? Hello, Senator. Wake up. We don't need 67 votes. Got it? So when you said that on Cavuto, you were wrong. 51 votes. Or could it be that you're so jealous and obsessed with attacking Ted Cruz and getting headlines attacking conservatives within your party that it doesn't matter? You're not really into this repeal or defund stuff, are you, Senator? No, you're not. Let's be honest. You've settled with this. This is fine by you. And I think it's fine with a lot of Republicans, neo-statists, right, folks? They like the status quo. Don't shake things up unless they're forced into it. That's why they hate Ted Cruz and Mike Lee, among others. What's the end game here, Ted? What's the end game here, Mike? I don't know. What's the end game with you? You're French Republicans. Complete economic catastrophe? Is that your end game? More on Paul Ryan on my program. I'm not just playing this because he was on my program. I'm playing it because of the substance, because I remembered him saying it on my program to counter John McLean, who's out there lying about the 67-vote threshold when it's a 51-vote threshold. Cut 17, go.
It comes down to an argument about can all of Obamacare be put into this bill or not? Because there are some parts of Obamacare that are sort of regulatory in nature and not fiscal in nature. Insurance regulations. We call these things like guaranteed issue and community rating. There will be a debate which will be arbiters, which will be determined by the Senate parliamentarian as to whether or not those are primarily fiscal policies or regulatory policies. So what I tell people at home is I think we can get 85% of this for sure repealed in reconciliation.
So we can get 85% of this for sure repealed in reconciliation. So, folks, how do we get this into reconciliation? The answer is you put it on one of these appropriation bills that the House keeps passing. Of course, the Senate won't reconcile. They won't pass anything. But my point is, it's not a 67-vote threshold, as McCain keeps saying. It's a 51-vote threshold, as Ryan says. That's how they passed it in the first place. The whole damn thing as a budget spending-related matter so they could get around the 60 votes. I talked about this last week and the week before, to get around the Scott Brown victory in Massachusetts. McCain even raises it above 60. He says we need 67. Why would we need 67? 67? It used to take 67 votes to break a filibuster decades ago. Now it takes 60 plus 1. I don't know what he's talking about because he doesn't know what he's talking about. But the fact is the magic number is 51, not 67, not 60 plus 1. 51. I know this because Paul Ryan said it, and you heard him say it just now. And yet we're going to have an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal tomorrow where he proposes entitlement reform to end the standoff with Obama, but no mention of addressing Obamacare. So in other words, diverting our attention. The fact is, Medicare and Social Security are headed for disaster. The fact is that it needs to be addressed. But that doesn't fix Obamacare. That has nothing to do with Obamacare. And whether you get to keep your insurance, those of you who have private insurance, or whether you can afford it, or whether you're thrown into some state exchange or what have you. I'm also troubled by capitulation that I hear by some of my friends on my favorite cable network who just want a deal. Got to have a deal to avoid our default. Even though I explained at some length in the first hour, as I've explained in past years, there is no default. Do they even know what default means? Why do they keep parroting what Obama says? And I keep seeing it, the little wording, alert, alert, alert. You know what I'm talking about, Mr. Producer? News alert, news alert, news alert. Default, default, default. Why are we regurgitating the lies that Obama and the liberals are putting out there? We don't face default. Period. The default will come in the future when the entire economy collapses from the weight of a massive government. Not by raising the debt limit, but by endless spending, borrowing, taxing, and then collapsing, and then catastrophe. That's the problem. Who's addressing that other than us? Other than you? Who's thinking about it other than us? Other than you? Nobody. They're so proud of themselves when they cut some spending. Look at this. The deficit this year is only $700 billion. It's better than $1.4 trillion. Oh, what a standard, huh? $700 billion was the highest it's ever been prior to this administration.